Before ice cream became the easiest thing in the world to buy on a hot afternoon, it was one of the most expensive luxuries human beings had ever tasted because for most of history, cold was not a convenience. Cold was power. Cold meant you had access to mountains, frozen lakes, storage pits, servants, ships, money, and time. Today, we open a freezer door and complain when there are only 6 flavors left. But for centuries, eating something frozen in summer felt almost impossible, like holding winter in a spoon. Long before modern ice cream, ancient people were already obsessed with cold sweetness. In China, Persia, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean world, people mixed snow or crushed ice with fruit, honey, syrups, wine, or fragrant waters. These early frozen treats were not ice cream yet, but they proved something important. Humans have always wanted dessert to feel like a small magic trick. In hot climates, chilled drinks and icy sweets were signs of wealth and sophistication. If you could serve guests something cold when the weather was burning outside, you were not just feeding them. You were showing them that your household could defeat the season. The road from ancient snow desserts to modern ice cream was not a straight line, and many famous stories are more legend than fact. People often say Marco Polo brought ice cream from China to Italy, but food history is usually messier than one traveler carrying one secret recipe across the world. What really happened was a slow movement of ideas through trade, empire, migration, science, and elite kitchens. In the Islamic world, sherbets and chilled fruit drinks became refined and fashionable. In Europe, sugar became more available to the wealthy, and cooks began experimenting with frozen creams, custards, and fruit mixtures. Italy played a major role in developing sorbetto and early gelato traditions, while France and England helped turn frozen desserts into courtly showpieces. But the real breakthrough was not just flavor, it was freezing technology. Cooks learned that when ice was mixed with salt, the temperature dropped low enough to freeze a sweet liquid inside a separate container. That discovery changed cold desserts forever. Suddenly, you did not have to wait for nature to freeze your food. You could make freezing happen on purpose. In royal and aristocratic kitchens, this became a form of theater. Imagine a table full of people who already had silver, servants, imported spices, and expensive wine. Then someone brings out a smooth frozen cream in the middle of summer. That dessert said something without speaking. It said the host could command cold itself. In the 1600s and 1700s, ice cream spread through European high society, but it was still very far from everyday food. Sugar was costly, cream had to be fresh, ice had to be harvested and stored, and the labor was intense. Smooth ice cream required constant stirring as it froze, because without movement, the mixture formed rough ice crystals. Every elegant spoonful carried the hidden work of someone turning, scraping, packing, and waiting. This is one of the great truths of food history. The foods that feel effortless often depend on enormous labor that disappears before the guest ever sees it. When ice cream entered early America, it followed the same pattern. It was a luxury for people with resources. George Washington enjoyed ice cream and spent serious money on equipment for making it. Thomas Jefferson also had an ice cream recipe, and his vanilla ice cream is one of the most famous early examples in American history. But at that time, ice cream was not yet the democratic dessert we know today. It belonged to elite dining rooms, special dinners, and households that could afford sugar, dairy, ice houses, and specialized tools. The ice house was crucial. Before mechanical refrigeration, Americans harvested blocks of ice from frozen rivers and ponds in winter, packed them in sawdust or straw, and stored them in insulated buildings for use months later. This created a massive ice trade in the 1800s. Ice was cut, sold, shipped, and delivered like treasure from winter. It helped preserve meat, fish, milk, and produce, but it also made cold desserts more practical. As ice became easier to buy, ice cream slowly moved from wealthy tables toward public life. Hand-cranked ice cream freezers made home production easier. Families still had to work for it, adding ice, salt, and muscle, but the process became social. Someone cranked the handle, someone checked the texture, someone waited impatiently, and children learned that patience was hardest when dessert was involved. Ice cream became an event, not just a food. In the 19th century, ice cream saloons and soda fountains helped make it part of American social culture. These places mattered because they offered a respectable alternative to bars, especially during the rise of temperance movements. Instead of alcohol, people could gather around sweet drinks, sundaes, and scoops. That may sound innocent, but it helped shape the idea of ice cream as family-friendly pleasure. It was public, cheerful, and acceptable for women, men, and children. Then, mechanical refrigeration transformed everything. Once cold could be produced reliably, ice cream became an industry. Factories could make it at scale. Railroads and refrigerated storage improved distribution. Urban populations grew, dairy networks expanded, and ice cream moved into more stores, restaurants, and homes. This is where the story becomes extremely American, because once a food becomes popular in the United States, someone will make it portable, branded, faster, cheaper, bigger, and easier to sell to children. The ice cream cone is one of the best examples. Before cones became common, ice cream was served in dishes, glasses, or small reused cups, which was not exactly a dream for public hygiene. The cone solved the problem beautifully. It was edible, portable, fun, and disposable. The exact origin of the cone is debated, but it became famously popular after the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair, where the idea of walking around with ice cream in a crisp, edible holder captured the public imagination. The cone turned ice cream into street food. You did not need a spoon, a chair, or a dining room. You could eat dessert while moving through a fair, a boardwalk, a park, or a city sidewalk. It also changed the experience. A bowl of ice cream is calm. A cone is a race against melting. It drips, leans, softens, and demands attention. You have to keep up with it, and that tiny bit of pressure is part of the pleasure. Around the same time, the sundae became another American icon. Several towns claim they invented it, and the origin stories often involve soda fountains, religious objections to selling soda on Sundays, and clever ways to serve ice cream with syrup instead. Whatever the exact truth, the sundae became a perfect American dessert because it was customizable, indulgent, and simple to understand. Ice cream, syrup, whipped cream, nuts, maybe a cherry on top. It could be modest or ridiculous. The banana split pushed that idea even further, turning dessert into a full performance with multiple scoops, toppings, sauces, and a banana sliced like a stage. Ice cream was becoming a platform, a food people could build on, personalize, and exaggerate. Packaged ice cream brought the story home. As home freezers became more common in the 20th century, ice cream changed from a special outing into something that could wait quietly in the kitchen until birthdays, weekends, breakups, celebrations, or midnight cravings. This is where ice cream became deeply tied to American memory. It was not just flavor. It was the sound of a scoop scraping across a tub, the smell of a waffle cone, the pressure of choosing a flavor while everyone behind you waited, the cold shock of the first bite, and the little childhood tragedy of dropping a cone on the pavement. The ice cream truck added another layer of ritual. That music drifting down the street could turn an ordinary afternoon into an emergency. Children ran for coins, parents pretended not to hear it, and the truck sold more than frozen treats. It sold urgency. If you missed it, it was gone. Novelty bars, sandwiches, pops, cups, and cartoon-shaped treats became part of summer because the ritual was as important as the product. Soft serve created a different kind of magic. Instead of scooping hard ice cream from a tub, machines pushed out a smooth, light swirl that looked modern, fast, and almost architectural. Soft serve contains more air than dense premium ice cream, but when done well, that air gives it its familiar creamy texture. It became the dessert of roadside stands, fast food counters, fairs, and drive-ins. A vanilla cone dipped in chocolate, a twist cone with sprinkles, or a simple cup from a walk-up window could feel like pure summer. Meanwhile, giant brands learned to sell ice cream not just as food, but as emotion. A pint could be comfort, personality, reward, nostalgia, or quiet rebellion after a long day. Premium brands made small luxury affordable. You might not be able to buy a vacation, but you could buy a pint that felt rich, dense, and personal. That is one of ice cream's greatest business tricks. It makes luxury small enough to hold in one hand. But behind the cheerful freezer aisle is a serious global story. Ice cream depends on dairy farming, sugar, vanilla, cacao, refrigeration, transportation, packaging, factory labor, and marketing. Vanilla, now treated as plain, was once rare and exotic. It came from an orchid native to Mexico and became a global commodity through colonization, botanical science, and labor-intensive cultivation. Chocolate connects ice cream to the long history of cacao, sugar, empire, and trade. Even strawberry, butter pecan, pistachio, coffee, and cookies and cream carry histories of agriculture, migration, regional taste, and industrial invention. Ice cream absorbs the world. If people crave something, companies eventually freeze it and sell it back to them. That is how we get cookie dough, brownie batter, birthday cake, cereal milk, matcha, black sesame, ube, dulce de leche, horchata, baklava, lavender, olive oil, and flavors that sound like a dare. This constant reinvention is one reason ice cream survives. It can be old-fashioned and trendy at the same time. It can be a scoop of vanilla at a county fair or a small batch flavor in a city shop where every ingredient has a backstory. Ice cream also reflects class. There are giant economy tubs, gas station freezer bars, luxury gelato shops, regional chains, and tiny expensive pints with poetic names. The same basic food can belong to children, chefs, families, tourists, college students, and people eating straight from the container while standing in the kitchen. Few foods move so easily between worlds. It also became part of American storytelling. In movies and television, ice cream signals comfort, heartbreak, childhood, summer, romance, sadness, and joy without needing explanation. A character holding a pint after a breakup makes immediate emotional sense. A family going out for cones feels warm before anyone says a word. A melting scoop creates instant urgency because ice cream is one of the few foods that openly reminds you it will not last. You have to enjoy it now. That is why it feels so connected to childhood and summer. It is temporary, sweet, and impossible to preserve perfectly. There is even poetry in the melting. Modern ice cream keeps changing because modern eaters keep changing. Frozen yogurt rose as a supposedly healthier option, then turned into self-serve shops where people could add candy until the health argument quietly disappeared. Dairy-free ice cream expanded the ritual to people who avoid milk because of lactose intolerance, vegan diets, allergies, or environmental concerns. Oat milk, coconut milk, almond milk, cashew milk, and other bases now compete with traditional dairy. High-protein pints, low-sugar versions, and low-fat formulas try to give people permission to enjoy dessert while worrying less. Some are impressive, and some taste like a nutrition label trying to become a personality, but they prove the same point. People do not want to give up ice cream. They want ice cream to adapt to them. Global flavors are also reshaping the freezer case. Ube, pandan, mango sticky rice, red bean, kulfi-inspired flavors, cajeta, tres leches, tahini, black sesame, and green tea show how migration and culture keep expanding what Americans consider normal dessert. The freezer aisle becomes a map of changing taste. Local shops still matter because they offer something national brands cannot fully copy: place. A neighborhood ice cream shop can taste like a childhood, a beach town, a college campus, a summer job, or a first date. People defend local favorites with intense loyalty because memory does not care about blind taste tests. The best ice cream is often not the most technically perfect. It is the one you had when you were hot, happy, young, tired, in love, or on vacation. Milkshakes, ice cream sandwiches, popsicles, and frozen custard each add their own chapters. Milkshakes turned ice cream into a drink thick enough to feel like a meal and became part of diner and fast food culture. Ice cream sandwiches solved the problem of portability without a cone, using soft wafers or cookies to hold cold cream in place. Frozen custard, especially beloved in parts of the Midwest, uses egg yolks for a richer texture. Popsicles and ice pops are cheaper, brighter, stickier, and often tied to childhood in a more chaotic way. Together, they show that ice cream is not just one product, it is an entire frozen universe. The science behind it is delicate. Fat carries flavor, sugar lowers the freezing point, air changes texture. Cold dulls taste at first, so flavors must be strong enough to bloom as the ice cream warms in your mouth. Stabilizers control ice crystals. Too icy, and it feels cheap. Too airy, and it feels empty. Too dense, and it can feel heavy. Great ice cream is chemistry pretending to be simple. That may be the secret of its power. Ice cream is technology, labor, trade, agriculture, marketing, memory, and emotion. But when it works, nobody thinks about any of that. They just take a spoonful and smile. From ancient snow mixed with honey, to royal banquets, colonial ice houses, hand-cranked freezers, soda fountains, cones, sundaes, trucks, soft serve, supermarket pints, dairy-free experiments, and global flavors. Ice cream has traveled from impossible luxury to everyday comfort, yet somehow it still feels like a treat. That contradiction is why it remains so beloved. It is ordinary enough to buy any day, but special enough to make the day feel better. It melts too fast, disappears too easily, and leaves behind only flavor, memory, and the quiet wish for one more bite.